Hey guys, Sam here, and today is publishing day for me, so what better time to make a video talking about how I publish my work to ensure that I get readers on my comic, which if you're an artist, a comic author, you know that one of the biggest things that plagues us is to work on something really hard and put a lot of effort into it, put it into the internet ethos, and have no one interact with it. So I'm going to be showing you my step-by-step process that I use to publish my work, Olde Treehouse, to ensure that I get some level of readership with every chapter that I make. We're going to start this off by talking about exporting. This is my first step. Once I finish one of my chapters, I go about exporting all of the pages. So I first do a batch export. This is something that you can do on the highest setting of Clip Studio Paint. And I batch export in PDF just to get like a general look at how my comic looks. Now, this step is all about the reader experience. So the reason why I wanted to focus on talking about exporting is because it has everything to do with the quality of your comic and how it looks to someone reading it. When you're drawing in your program, whatever you use, you kind of have this tendency to look at it a particular way from only your eyes. But when you export it and you drag it around, if you have access to different monitors and things like that, you can actually see how someone else might see it. And that's why this step is really important. Work that is low quality is probably not going to have a lot of readership. So the quality is so important to ensuring that you can build a base off of your work. For me, I'm using Global Comics, and the reason for that is because it allows me to upload the highest quality I can export in from Clip Studio, which would be 600 DPI. Now, I originally, on my first chapter, exported in 600 DPI, but I realized that the higher the DPI setting, the higher quality, aka the more mistakes of mine that you can see. So I found a good middle ground around 300 DPI when I'm exporting each page from my comic. Once I'm done with the exporting process, I'm sure that the quality looks good. What I'm gonna do now is move over to step 2, which is making promotional graphics. This, I think, is the most important step, and I think it's often the most overlooked step for a lot of manga, webtoon, and comic creators out there. For promotional graphics, basically, you want to take the platforms that you feel the most comfortable with. You have to kind of like sift through the noise to find which platform works best for you. Now, for me, I use Twitter in large part, and I use this particular YouTube channel as well. What I do is I then go ahead and make graphics for a Twitter post, and the Twitter post, I want to give someone who sees this post a little bit of insight into what goes on into this chapter. So that means I'm going to include some teaser panels and pages from the work. Now, I know a lot of people might feel like, well, I don't want to give away what happens in the chapter in the promotional post. And I know that that is, a fair concern. But what I would urge you to think about is you want to entice someone to read. You want them to say, oh, that looks cool. I want to see how the characters get to this point. You don't want to hide it from them and hope that, a reader would feel compelled to click. You want to give them just enough so that they really do want to click. Don't worry about giving too much away. The reality is, we're not writing for Shonen Jump. We don't have like Webtoons original. We don't have, a famous manga where people necessarily care about spoilers yet. So it's only in your best interest to show off, that hard work that you did. So I make my Twitter posts. I include about 2 to 3 different panels that I thought were really cool to highlight in the Twitter post. And I usually do a main banner to kind of introduce the chapter with the title name. And that way, if someone's scrolling and they see a post about, chapter 5 of Olde Treehouse is out, they don't just see me as the creator saying that. They kind of get a little bit of insight into what's going to happen in this chapter that might make them, want to click a little more. Additionally, I use the community tab here on this YouTube channel. Now, I love all of you. You all are so amazing. If you've been keeping up with Olde, this is something that I've been recently doing. The community tab is an excellent way to share with your audience that you've built what's upcoming and what's new in your comics. So I highly encourage. And don't worry about quote unquote spamming. There are people in your audience that want to see what you work on. So you should be just excited to show them that as you were to make your thing, your comic, Ultimately, step 2 with making promotional graphics, which I personally think is the most important step, is all about the curiosity gap that you want to introduce to the potential audience. You don't want to just say, chapter 5 out now and here's the link, You want to give people a reason to click. You want to open up that curiosity gap and open up that, bit of intrigue that makes someone want to see. And the last step that I use to upload my comic is uploading to your preferred platform and spending time on your chapter synopsis. So on Global Comics, I'm not quite sure about the other platforms, I frankly do not remember, but on Global Comics in particular, you're given the option to add about 1,800 character chapter synopsis. Now, this is so important. Don't just write anything here. Don't just, boringly summarize what happens in the chapter. And I'll tell you exactly why. On the comics platform that you're uploading to, there are two types of people who will stumble upon your comic. There are the people who will come from you directly driving them to the platform, and there are people who are natively, organically on the platform browsing work, okay? And the way you market to these two people are very different. The way that you market to the people that you bring is via the Twitter posts and community tab things that we just spoke about. But for the people who are organically browsing the platform, they may not know about your work. They first see the cover and title intrigues them, they click on it, and then they see the list of your chapters. This is where the chapter synopsis really shines and comes through. You want someone to be able to read this and feel like, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds interesting. I want to read, why this chapter ended up this way. I want to read what happens in this chapter. You use the same techniques with the curiosity gap and building intrigue with your chapter synopsis as you do with your promo posts, because basically that synopsis is a promo post as well. So I always make sure to put a nice, interesting, and detailed description while keeping it nice and concise to give someone a little teaser and a little taste of what's going to happen in this chapter that they're about to read. If you do all of these things, you will guaranteed to have some readership when you publish your comic. You gotta reach your audience where they're at, and you can't be shy to really advertise your work. And that leads me to the final step here, which I think is not talked about probably as much as it should be talked about. And that's probably because as artists and writers, we don't want to talk about marketing after we've made the product, but the reality is it's the way that you take all the hard work that you did and you put it out there. The marketing is so key. And I watch a YouTuber named Chris Do. He's actually a lot more than a YouTuber, but I'm just going to, for the sake of brevity, call him a YouTuber. And he had on a guy named Alan Dibb, and they're, marketing guys. They're all in that business world of YouTube, which is not my forte, but there's a lot of really good information regarding marketing. And Alan Dibb said that it's not the best product that wins necessarily. It's the best marketer who wins. And I genuinely, even though this was a hard pill to swallow as a creative person, I genuinely believe that this is true. So you need to put as much effort into building that audience as you do into making your comic. And yes, for us creatives, that does mean that we need to do double work, unfortunately. But you can look at it like this. If you know that the work that you made is exceptional and you really want people to read it and you really want people to see your art and see your story, you should feel really good about screaming about this thing from the rooftops. You should feel really good about promoting this thing in creative and interesting ways. Building that audience ensures that when you drop a chapter, when you publish something, there will be people who will see it and who will read it. And that's only going to motivate you to keep working more. So you might say, well, how do you build an audience? You could do what I'm doing, which is a YouTube channel, giving people value. They may be interested in what you produce as well because you've given them value. Now, that's just one step to building an audience, and that's a specific kind of audience, right? They come for you, they come for your value. The other thing is you can lead with your product, which is your story, your comic in this case. And I have a separate YouTube channel where I'm experimenting with this. And what this is you're giving the audience your story, your characters in the form of animatics, in the form of narrations, in the form of just simply talking about it. These are two really key ways that you build an interest into your story. So consider that and see if it works for you. That being said, those are the steps that I take to ensure that every time I publish a chapter for my manga, I do get readership. And maybe you can try doing some of these things and seeing how it works for you, particularly with promotional graphics and making sure that your synopsis for your chapters is very intriguing and interesting. If you liked this video, as usual, it always helps when you leave a like and subscribe, and also comment on what you think may work or may not work about these tips. I really appreciate all of your insight and feedback. Everyone is always just so amazing in the comments. And if you are one of the folks who have been keeping up with the Olde Treehouse, Chapter 5 is out now, and this is an action-heavy chapter, folks, and I'm not like a battle manga person. So if you want to see how I approach action and you're interested in the Olde Treehouse, check it out on Global Comics. The link is in the description below, and let me know what you think about it. Also, don't forget to shelf the Olde Treehouse on Global Comics if you're really digging it. That helps me out a lot. So until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.